Thank you, Greg. Thanks, everybody. Glad you could take the time to join us today. So it's just a little brief overview of Air Canada, sort of a Air Canada 101. And what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit of who we are. We're the largest carrier in Canada. We travel to 6 continents across the globe, so we're not just transborder or domestic Canada. We fly into Europe, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean, big for the sun. We have a mission for sustainability, like many of our partner airlines and competitors. So it's very important to us. There's hundreds of projects going on to help us achieve the goals of net zero by 2050. We have a lot by 2030, and hopefully sustainable fuel is actually one of the largest ones for most of us airlines. Sorry about my scrolling. Just basic key financials, I will say, and thanks to many of you agents, we really appreciate you supporting Air Canada. We had our first profitable year since 2019. So good news for all of us in the industry. People are traveling, we're starting to make money. And of course, Air Canada's putting more money, investing it into the carrier. Our network, big for you. So Singapore is new to us. That starts in April next month. It's going to be flying out of Vancouver on a large aircraft, 777. We're starting seasonal service to Stockholm from Montreal. Osaka, Japan will be seasonal, as well as we're adding additional flights into Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Brussels, and Edinburgh. So you'll get this, you can look at it later, but just to let you know what the Canadian network is like, fly to many, many cities across Canada. And the transborder. Transborder has grown. During the pandemic, only 2 years ago, we actually started reflying between the US and Canada. We're now at about 51 cities. Actually, we're launching Charleston next week. We're adding a new St. Louis, Montreal, and Austin, Texas, to Montreal into the network. Sun, we call it Sun, very Canadian, but it's the Caribbean and Latin America. So I know it might seem counterintuitive, but Air Canada has a lot of great connections, especially from the northern part of the United States via Canada, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto into many cities. So any foreign city, we can't take you to a US Caribbean, but any of the other national Caribbeans or into Latin America, we have some great fares and some very good connections. And international. So we're flying out of 51 cities. We can connect you from Vancouver, Montreal, or Toronto to all these cities across Europe, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and of course, Latin America. There's a few here that are seasonal. And as we get more aircraft, which a lot are in delay, we hope to change some of them to year-round. So this brings me to connections. A lot of people are confused about how you connect over Canada. So when you're booking your clients, I'm just going to make up, let's say from St. Louis to Paris, and they're traveling St. Louis, Montreal, Montreal, Paris. Their bags are checked through to their final destination. They are simply going through Canada, and when they get to Canada, they're just checking that they have the right documents, like a passport to go forward, and their boarding cards, so that when they go through Canada, they end up going to the right destination. This includes if they're flying within Canada. So on the return, when they come through, they clear US Customs and Immigration in Canada. They do not need to pick up their bags. Their bags, the customs is in our baggage room, and everything's scanned and sorted there. So they simply go through US Customs and Immigration. Their bags are put on their connecting flight back to the US. They do not have to pick it up. So it's very seamless. They will go through a security to scan their carry-on bags, but that's not unusual. We do that in a lot of US cities. And then they pick up their bag upon arrival in a domestic. So they do not go through in some of our big airports, there are really long lines coming back into the US. So this is a super easy way to connect. And I assure you, my flight was late in December. I made a connection in 20 minutes in Montreal from Frankfurt through Montreal back to Chicago. So it worked really well. So just a short overview of the type of aircraft we have. Rouge, you'll see at the bottom, is our leisure arm. That is mostly to the Caribbean, but everything long haul into Asia, into Europe, into North Africa, that is using our larger aircrafts. And we have a lot on order. The fleet will be renewed as the aircrafts become available. So there's been some delays. We expected a few more this year, but they're pushed off to next year. So this is some of our product on board. So economy class. So when you're traveling in North America, domestic Canada, or to the Caribbean, we have business class. Our domestic partner United calls it first class. It's equivalent. And international, we have something called economy plus, where that's usually the bulkhead or an exit row. For premium economy, that's on our long haul aircraft. It's a separate cabin. It has its own crew. It has a larger screen. It has a footrest, a deeper recline, wider seats. It's very nice. Very nice if you're traveling over to Europe and your clients want to upgrade but aren't ready to go to business class. This is a very nice alternative. And I will tell you, when we started this, we used to do upgrades at the airport. Nowadays, the flights are full in premium economy, and usually airport upgrades aren't available. So if your clients are interested, they probably should book it at the time of booking. Business class, we have business class on our transcontinental, which includes from Canada into like San Francisco and LA and Houston. We'll have a business class cabin there. It's excellent service. But our premium service is what we call our signature class. That is on our long haul aircraft into Europe, Asia, Africa. And in addition to the service on board, we have special lounges. So travelers traveling in business class, meaning a booked business class, not a standby or upgrade, have access to our Maple Leaf lounges across Canada. We have a few in the US and in Europe. The picture on the right, that is San Francisco Airport, and it's outdoors, and it's the first time that we've ever done anything like that, or San Francisco Airport. So it's really fantastic views of the airport. We also have a signature suite. We have this in Vancouver and in Toronto. This is for Air Canada only, not for our JV partners, which have access to the Maple Leaf lounges. So if they're booked on Air Canada operated, an Air Canada flight number, they have access to these signature lounges. It's a little closer to the gates, the international gates in Toronto and Vancouver. Special upgraded service. They have a very well-stocked bar. The food is fantastic. And it's a great place to prepare for your long-haul flight. We have an Air Canada Cafe. This is new. We have it at Toronto. And we also have it both Pearson and Billy Bishop, which is the airport that's closer to downtown. This is very quick. They're passing through. They don't have time to sit in the lounge. They just want to grab some coffee or a drink or something before they head to their gate. So it's very popular for a lot of those early morning business travelers, whether they're traveling within Canada or to the US. They use this very often, and we expanded to Billy Bishop last year. I just wanted to explain our fares. So fares can be confusing, and Air Canada, we used to call them, we had different names for them, but this is just an overview of the type of fares that are out there. Now, a basic fare, just like everyone else, there are no changes, no things. It's only available on direct channels. So it will become available when NDC is used, but most agents shy away from it because there's nothing we can do to help you. If a client uses this, they're not refundable, even for medical emergencies. But the standard, flex, latitude, those are economy fares. Then we have premium economy. You have a lower one that has more restrictions, and then you have one that's more flexible. And then again, business class has a lower, they have some advanced purchase fares, some very good fares, and then the more flexible fares. So baggage. So I will tell you that Air Canada is very strict on the carry-on baggage. And I have found, and so have my colleagues, that they do measure. So if clients are trying to be a big carry-on, they will check it for them at the gate. It will not go on board. This is to help streamline the boarding process and deboarding. And so therefore these dimensions, they're a little hard. It's 13 inches by 6 inches by 17, and they will measure. And I will tell you that the head of sales, she was traveling and her wheels were a 1/4 inch too much. It didn't fit in the thin, and they made her check her bag. So even Air Canada travelers don't get away with a big bag. So I would say for your travelers, and I think we see this in the industry, it's really important to have a bag that your important stuff is on board, but something that is going to fit in the overhead easily. And check bags. It's calculated, for any price on a check bag is available on the website. Basically, you put in where they're flying from and to, and it will give you an idea of what any cost would be. It depends on their origin and destination. One thing I didn't put a slide in here are seats. Air Canada charges for advanced seat assignments. However, when someone's traveling and you check in 24 hours before, they can select a seat at no charge. The only seats that always have a charge is what we call a preferred seat, something that is sort of the bulkhead or maybe an exit row. Otherwise, 24 hours before, there's no fee for them to purchase, to assign a seat. Oops, and that is it for me. And I think, Greg, I'm going to look to see if there were any questions. I didn't get any questions, so if anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer. So, clients flying on Air Canada to Vancouver from Newark for a cruise in June. Would my clients so when you're flying from the US to Canada, they'll clear customs in Canada for Canadian destination. When they return, I'm presuming they're returning from Vancouver to Newark. They'll clear customs and immigration in Vancouver coming into the United States. So I know Newark is a busy airport. I'm a New Yorker, so I've flown in and out of Newark for many years, and it can get very busy. So this way they'll pick up their baggage as a domestic carrier and they don't go through customs in Newark. They've already cleared it in Vancouver on the return to the US. Okay, somebody couldn't see but could hear. Well, Thomasita, I'm sorry you couldn't see it, but Greg will send it out and you should be able to see the PowerPoint. Yes, some fares do include seat options. Centrav can help you, but also on the aircanada.com site, if you look at seats, there's a grid that shows you which fare types include seats. Usually the more flexible, higher fares include seats. Business class, lie flat are on the international. So for our larger aircraft, the A340s, the 777s, the Dreamliners, those are all lie flat seats, and that's our signature cabin, as well as the transcontinental flights. Those are usually Dreamliners. Those are lie flats. For domestic, Canada, transborder, or into the Caribbean, it is a deep recline, but it's not a lie flat on the domestic business class. Your business class seat style, again, it's fully lie flat. That's our signature class. It's been updated. It continues to be updated. It's a beautiful seat, very comfortable. We have smaller cabins, like on our Dreamliner, we have 21 business class seats. So it's a much more intimate type experience. for your clients in Air Canada's business class. Any more info on OpenJaw USA to UK, Ireland? So, well, Air Canada, we fly into the UK, into London. We also are flying into Edinburgh, Scotland, and Dublin, Ireland. So your Centrav agents can help you, but if you have a client who wants to fly into one city and come back for another, you can price your ticket that way. It's allowable. I hope that answers your question, Robert. Meals on overseas flight. Well, we do serve meals. Usually, when you're leaving, it's usually an evening flight. So usually they will serve dinner right away. And it's usually 2 to 3 choices. If you have a traveler that has a special need request, you let your Centrav agents know if you need help on what those codes are. But for somebody who is diabetic, or somebody who needs a kosher meal, or somebody who needs a kosher Muslim meal, or someone who needs gluten-free, those are all, we have all those choices, and you just need to let us know. But otherwise, they're on an overnight flight, they're served a meal departing, just usually not that long after takeoff, and then a breakfast upon arrival. On the daytime flights, it's usually like a lunch and then a snack before arrival. And then there's full beverage carts. Soft drinks are at no cost. In economy class, alcohol is for purchase, and it is no cost in business class or premium economy. Okay, so customs. Could I explain the customs? So when you've traveled overseas, whether you've gone to Europe or Asia or Latin America or a Caribbean nation, non-US, when you're connecting back to the US, let's say you're coming from Jamaica and you're going to connect through Toronto and go back to Cleveland. Your bags will be checked through from Jamaica to Cleveland. When your travelers arrive in Toronto, their hand baggage is scanned, and then they go on the line for customs and immigration. Now, if they have global entry, there is a global entry line, or they can go through the normal, and they come through the line, and the US customs agents are in Canada, and they will just pass through just as if they were in the US. It's actually very quick, and then they go straight to their gate for their onward US connection. They do not pick up their bags. Their bags are checked through to them. Now, one caveat I will say, and this can happen to anybody, Customs and Immigration has the right to do random inspections. And if that's the case, and it happened to only one traveler that I know in the 8 years that I've been with Air Canada, that they brought the bag up to Customs, they checked his bag, everything was fine, they zipped it up, and they brought it onto his flight, and he had no problem. And he said it maybe took 10 more minutes. And in all my years, I only know one person that happened to. So it's very seamless and very quick. I hope that helps you, Jenny. Check bag fees. There are check bag fees, and you'll find them at aircanada.com because, as I stated earlier, they are based on destination. Just like any other airline, I always suggest, I've worked for the airlines a long time, oversized baggage tends to be very expensive. So it's always better for somebody to do an extra check bag than a very heavy or oversized large bag. So all the dimensions and all the fees are on aircanada.com, or again, your Centrav agents can help you with that information too, should you not be able to find it. Business class, there is no fee. It is for economy class. For support, when you're booking through Centrav, talk to your Centrav agents. They're very skilled, and they will help you with everything you need. And if if you have some unusual situation, they will work with Air Canada directly on your behalf. Does Air Canada fly out of most major airports in the US? We fly out of 51 airports. And when you get this presentation, you'll see on US domestic, it will show you that we fly across the USA and 51. As a matter of fact, we are the largest international airline to service the US. We fly to more US cities than any other international airline. Greg, this might be for you. Does Centrav have access to NDC fares?
Yes, we do. We have been working with NDC for quite a while. We've only released one airline currently. It's not Air Canada, but more airlines to be released soon. NDC has been kind of a mess, kind of a headache for post ticketing issues. So we wanted to go slowly with it, but we feel like we're able to handle it and get on top of it. So I expect to see all the airlines release their NDC fares through Centrav.com in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's great news. And I will say that Air Canada is available to help all our agencies as they're transitioning from the old way, the EDIFACT, to NDC. And they can always reach out to us if they're having any challenges. But I concur with what Greg said, is it's been a slower transition, but we launched NDC for point of sale US last December, and we're finding more and more agents are actually using it. But I will say that Air Canada has, through the GDS NDC, the post-booking has really, a lot has been added. Some of the other ways, what you call an aggregator, has been a little slower. We have our own connection, but Centrav is a big agency and they've been working very hard and putting a lot of effort into this, so it will come. But as I said before, all fares are available in the GDS except basic fares. And we don't have basic fares to every destination, just so you know. But they will be available when Centrav switches to NDC. A group is 10 or more travelers is considered a group. Anything less than that would be considered individuals. Hope that helps you, James. They're lounges. So here's the question: are the lounges with a paid membership business class, premium economy? So if you've paid for business class, not a free upgrade, you have access to the lounges. If you're in premium economy, you would have to pay to enter. There is a paid lounge membership through the Aeroplan, through Air Canada, that they can do. If I would suggest that if they're a frequent traveler, they are more than likely part of the Air Canada frequent flyer program, which is called Aeroplan. And through that, they may be able to access a lounge through a membership. But even if somebody's, for say, we have a lot of travelers who are United Mileage Plus members, they don't have access to the Air Canada lounges through a membership, but if they're booked in business class, they do. I hope that is helpful. We fly out of Atlanta, nonstop to Toronto and Montreal. Not GSP yet, but that's a good question. We just are launching Charleston next week. So that's a new US gateway for us in the Southeast. Do we have flights to Southeast Asia? As you may know, Asia flights are taking a bit longer to recover. So for China, we fly into Shanghai from Vancouver and Toronto. We fly into Tokyo, Haneda, and Narita. We're flying into Hong Kong. We actually just increased our Hong Kong flights. Bangkok was new for us, and it's done amazingly well. We'd love for it to be all year, but as aircraft rotation doesn't allow it, but we're flying into Bangkok. It's seasonal during our winter. And we fly into Seoul, South Korea at the time. And of course, we fly into Australia, and New Zealand was on the list. We're hoping it comes back. Do we have an agent rate for purchasing the 30 flight pass for our clients? Well, flight pass, if people don't know, is a very Air Canada thing. There are a lot of different flight passes. There's some for corporations or there's some for individuals. What you do is you purchase a certain number of coupons, or flights, and a flight is considered a one-way direction. You can have up to 2 connections. So that means you could do up to 3 coupons. That's considered a one-way. And usually the smallest one is 30 credits. So for a round trip, most of the time you're using 2 of those credits. There's not an agent rate for that. The only discount we have for agents is through our AD75 program. But the Flight Pass is a very good program. If you have customers that book very last minute and need a seat, but want to have a more, know what their rate is going to be, it's a great tool. And a company one is good because then the company owns the Flight Pass. If an individual buys it and leaves the company, that Flight Pass goes with the individual. Back to customs. What if they are connecting in Canada, going to Europe and not Canada? Yeah, easy connection. They leave from a US gateway. Their bags are checked through to their final destination, let's say Copenhagen. So they'll leave from Los Angeles, connect through Toronto onto Copenhagen. Their bags are checked from LA to Copenhagen. They just transfer in Toronto, and the only thing they'll check is their passport will be checked and their boarding card will be checked. One, to make sure that the airport staff is sending them to the right gates, and 2, that they have the right documentation to enter the country of their final destination. So it's very seamless. They do not recheck their bags. They do not pick up their bags. They just go straight through. Okay. So returning to the US from an international trip, whether it's Europe, Latin America, Asia, when they come from their foreign destination and they get to Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, they will clear US customs and immigration in Canada. They do not pick up their bags. They only have their hand baggage. They will go through, they can go through if they have global entry, or they'll go through the regular line. It's very quick either way. And then they go, once they get through that, they get, well, they're not really stamping our passports these days, scan their boarding card, they go straight to their gate to their US destination. Let's see, I have a group flying into Greece from Miami and stopping in Montreal. Is there a lounge in Montreal? Yes, we have lounges in Montreal. Again, if they have the right type of ticket, if they're business class, they have access to the lounge. If you're booking a group through the Air Canada system, you can check if there's availability to purchase it depending on their fare type. But the group desk or Centrav, who might be helping you with the group, can also help you with that in the inquiry. Check bag fees, Phoenix to Vancouver. Yes, again, on aircanada.com, it will tell you what the fees are based on the fare type that they purchase. There could be fees. If it's business class, there is no fee. There's no fee for a carry-on bags, just so you know. Can I book a flight San Francisco to Palm Springs on Air Canada? No, we're not able to sell from a US destination via Canada to another US destination. I worked in the airlines a long time, and it's called cabotage. It's not permitted by law. So you can fly from the US via Canada to any other international destination. But you can fly our partner United. Okay, let's see. For another open jaw info, more specifically, any of those city pairs are not allowed beyond what we can see in the fare rules. I'm not sure I understand that question, Greg. Do you? The question, thanks for the open jaw info, more specifically, any of those city pairs that are not allowed or anything else we can see.
I think he's asking if all city pairs can be an open jaw, or if there's just regions, like has to be in Europe or has to be in somewhere else.
Most, I mean, I've been, you can answer this too. Most fairs, international fairs, allow an open jaw. However, if you have an extremely restricted fare, like a basic fare, they may not. But it will be in the fare rules and advise you if it allows an open jaw. Generally speaking, traveling internationally, you're not going to have a basic fare. We don't have them actually to Europe and such, at least not at this point. So those are the most restrictive, and most of the time they don't allow it. But I think a single open jaw usually is not a problem at all for travelers. We have a lot of cruise passengers globally, all over the world, into Europe, Caribbean, Asia, Middle East, and open jaw is what a cruise line does. So it is permissible on most fares, but again, it will be in the rules for you. Okay, I don't know where I am on the.
Let's see.
Do you get special rates? That would be through an AD 75 request. We don't have any sort of published regular special rates for agents, just a normal AD 75 request. Oh, here we go. Okay, looking at the baggage pictures, the 13 by 6 by 17, that is a personal item. Well, that's a good question. Hold on. That would be your carry-on, because that's a personal item, and I know the carry-on can be 21 inches, including the wheels. So I don't know about you, but when I go shopping, it says, oh, this is a 20 inch. And if you measure it, it's 22 because the wheels add another 2 inches. So that picture is a personal, the bottom picture is a carry-on, the 21.5 by 9 by 14. But on the website, it will have specific. And the personal item goes under your seat, and the carry-on item that's not more than 21 inches would go above. But again, have your travelers check including the wheels, because the wheels do add usually 2 inches to what your bag says it is, because most of these baggage are just measuring the actual bag and not including the wheels. And I don't know where I'd be without a wheelie. Okay, let's see. Notice some seats have designation for pet carrier. If you reserve the seat, does that mean another traveler's pet could be stowed there if the seat does not have that option? That is a very good question. I have to take that back. But here's what I would say. They would not separate a pet from its owner. More than likely, they might have somebody change a seat. But usually, those are last minute, like they would open it up to allowing somebody else to book that seat if there is no pet in cabin. Okay, questions are about outbound flights, not returning. I have had people trouble going through Canada. So I don't know what trouble they've had, but okay, I will tell you something I learned when I came to Air Canada in 2015. If you have a record of DUI, you are not allowed in Canada. That is the only problem I've ever heard anybody have. If somebody has a passport, it's always the responsibility of the traveler, but you as their travel professionals should help them check the transit or their final visa destinations. That could be a challenge for somebody if they're required a visa. When you're traveling through Canada, you do not need what they call an ETA, but if you're traveling to Canada, you will, except for US travelers. So for example, now people that have a Mexican passport do need a special ETA visa to come into Canada, but not transiting Canada. Travelers who are Chinese coming through Montreal, there's a special area where they're held where they don't need it. They can transit without visa. That is something Canada has arranged with the government of China. So as an airline, any other airline, we all have to abide by the rules of the government. So that would apply to even my partner airlines and competitors. So it's very important to check on the visa requirements for your travelers, no matter what they tell you. I would say that would be a bonus for you to look it up for them and help them. A lot of people don't really think there's a challenge, or they don't think they need it. And of course, us coming into Europe now, as with US passports, we will be asked to pay a fee now, and that is coming this year. So I'm not sure the date of that, but that's coming from the EU. I hope that answers your questions. Oh, the mobile I would note that the AC Mobile is great and has luggage tracking. And I loaded a client booking. Thank you. Yes, that's very new, us being able to track baggage. It was done as a test. It's now domestic Canada. The goal is to roll it out across the entire network, but it's new. And I have to say the Air Canada app is very, very good. One of our COOs we stole him from another airline, and he helped develop that. And he's been really forward thinking on working on a lot of our IT improvements. So thank you for that comment. Let's see, sorry. 51 cities, great to know. Thank you. And we hope that continues to grow. Because I think before the pandemic, we were at 59 cities. So we'd like to see more. The layover time. Every schedule is based on your destination, whether you're connecting from a domestic Canadian onto a US flight or a US flight via Canada to another international destination. The displays in your GDS will show you the minimum. If you book it where you're booking one segment and then book a separate segment, meaning non-married segments, you'd have to look up the minimum connecting time. They're also available on Air Canada, but I would strongly suggest you book it as married segments, because that minimum connecting time is built in there for your customers. So it really depends on where they're traveling to and traveling from. Okay, let's see. Explain NDC. It's the new distribution capability. So if you're new to travel, and I am not, the current way, and Greg, you can help me how it looks, but the current way that most systems were booked, it's just like a green screen with writing and you don't see pictures and images. NDC will be more what they call rich content, like you have on a website, and you'll be able to view and click and see and open. Also, what happens with NDC is when you're booking a ticket on Air Canada through NDC, Air Canada issues the ticket for you, which means that we've verified everything on the ticket, which should, this is what it should do, is eliminate or minimize it to almost zero, the possibility for an ADM, because we've verified what's been booked is correct. And then we issue the tickets for you. So, and that is the way it works for all airlines. So it's trying to help be able for you as agents to see better and understand what it is you're trying to book for your clients. On a ticketing side, it helps reduce that kind of double checking, triple checking, did I do it right? And third, I think it works as a partnership. And a lot of people don't see it that way, but truly as travel agents, you are partners with all of us in the airline industry. And it's a challenge. And the way we book it now, it's been like that since the 60s. So we've been talking about NDC for over 10 years. It's now sort of been pushed. And I mean, I know when I came to Air Canada, we were talking about the developments and we had meetings every week with our JV partners, United and Lufthansa. And we were all kind of in the same, kind of doing it the same way. And then the pandemic came and everybody kind of did things a little differently, but we still work together. There's still calls all the time. We're trying to synergize everything as a JV partner, and also as trying to be a global carrier, making sure. So when we rolled NDC out, we did it in Canada first, and then we did it in the UK first, and then we went to the US. So we're rolling out by country slowly, just so it can be absorbed, and you're still able to book it either way. It's just that NDC will become the future, and as Greg said, not everybody's there. Not every GDS is offering what it should, or the aggregators are offering what it should, and even the airlines, I think there's like 49 functionalities, and not all of us are up to the 49, but every week we get an update of how far we're coming and what's on the plan, and really working to make NDC easy to use and something that you as agents will benefit you, because then you'll have a much better understanding of what you're booking for your clients. You'll see what it looks like. You'll know what's included, right? You'll choose a fare and then you'll hover over it, and then it will show you what's included in that fare. Is it refundable? Is it changeable? Is there a fee for change? Is the seat included, or how much would a seat be? And that will help you tremendously. I hope that helps a bit. Why are groups more expensive to book than individual bookings? I don't think that's necessarily true, but if you're booking in the summer, it really depends on your itinerary. Are you including other carriers, not just Air Canada, just like a fare? And what I will say, when you're looking for groups and looking to do it through Centrav, if you have competitive information, please let your Centrav agent know that you have some other quote or you've seen something else, so that they can share that with Air Canada at the time of the request. So we work very hard to use a more automated system, and we work directly with the agents. It's through, like, once they make a booking, usually within 48 hours, it's all confirmed and they have a fare quote. If something's different, they can communicate with us and we review it. And honestly, it should be simpler, but we do review it. It's based on the time, how full the flight is already. The last 2 years have been very sort of unusual in how hard it was to find available seats during the summer. This year, we're seeing our flights filling very quickly, but not as quickly as they did the last 2 years. So I think people are becoming a little more a little bit, planning a little bit better instead of just saying, oh my gosh, I have to be somewhere. Kevin had a question. Do you ever think Louisville, Kentucky? Kevin, nothing's off the table is what I can say for Air Canada. But I will say we look at it very closely. We look at, first of all, the first thing is there an aircraft available for that route? I know Louisville's big. The closest airport to Louisville would be the Cincinnati airport, which we've flown out of for many years. But if we do, it's planned about a year in advance, and usually we make the announcements about 6 months ahead. But I haven't, I'm not privy to all that. I kind of find out when we've decided something and then try to help get the word out. But I'll pass that on. Please explain the door-to-door pick and cost. That I'd have to look into. I think it's only in Canada. So let me get back to you, and then I can let Greg know so that we can let you know, Terry. Okay. Okay. Can a group of 6 seats in Signature and 8 in Premium Economy? You can split a group into the type of seats that you'd like to select. They don't necessarily all have to be in the same booking class. And we've even seen it where they'll go over in business and back in Premium Economy. So that can be requested at the time. What about flights from Charlotte, North Carolina? Yes, we do. We fly from Charlotte to Toronto. We flew there before the pandemic, and that actually came back in 2022. So Charlotte's a great gateway, and we have some good connections out of Charlotte via Canada into Europe. Hope that helps you, Maggie. Does Air Canada have direct flights to New Delhi from US? Well, we're a Canadian carrier, so just like every foreign carrier, we can only take you from our home country. So we can connect you via Canada to New Delhi. We do fly to New Delhi. It's out of Toronto. There are some challenges since the war in Ukraine of the flyover the Russian airspace. So we have been making a stop in Dublin to refuel and change crew to fly on to New Delhi. But we are servicing New Delhi. And Mumbai is supposed to come back this summer as well. So Air Canada, we fly from Chicago O'Hare into Toronto, into Montreal, and into Vancouver. And our partner, United Airlines, also has similar flights. They also have a flight from Chicago to Calgary, and we co-share on that. And we've improved our arrangement, our transborder agreement with United. So we've kind of coordinated schedules now. So we have much better schedules. So 2 years ago, I'm making this up, Air Canada could had a flight at 8:01 a.m. from Chicago to Toronto, and then United had one at 8:10. So now what we've done is work together to coordinate schedules so there's better choices for all our travelers. Is there a direct flight to Australia? Yes, Sydney. We fly into Sydney and Brisbane, Australia. Pre-pandemic, we had Melbourne as well, and that's not back on the schedule right now, but we hope it does. So, but direct from Toronto, it's actually a connection through Vancouver. We don't have a direct flight yet. That's a long flight, so we don't have the aircraft right now for that range from Toronto to Australia, but we do from Vancouver. I hope that helps you. Oh, I haven't changed slides. That was my last slide. So the procedure changing from a cruise to Air Canada in Toronto. So I'm not sure. I have to look. I'll have to look into that and let Terry know. Anybody coming off a cruise is entering the airport like they would any other airport. So, but if they're going on a cruise from the US, most of the cruise travelers we get are out of Vancouver into Alaska. There is a whole process where they change their bags and collect it, and they have this whole procedure in Vancouver for all the Alaska cruise customers. In Toronto, it would be like any other connection where whether they're originating or they're connecting. So maybe you can give a little, like Richard, a little more specific of what you're looking for, and might be able to answer it for you better. What if the connecting flight through Canada requires an overnight? So if you have to overnight, you have to leave the airport. Unless usually you'll leave the airport, so you'll be outside of the secure area, which means then you'll have to check in again the next day, but you still clear customs and immigration in Canada. Even if you have a forced overnight or you've chosen to stay in Canada for a day or two, you'll collect your bags in that case, and then the next day when you check in and you'll check your bags, or if you only have carry-on, you'll go through customs and immigration in Canada before you come to the US. I hope that's clear. Or travel insurance included. Air Canada does not offer travel insurance, and I will leave that up to Greg. Most travel insurance you purchase through your agency, so maybe Greg, you can answer if Centrav has that option.
Yes, we do. It's in the booking process. So or the purchase process. So when you're purchasing a ticket on Centrav.com, it will offer you travel insurance.
And if somebody's going on like a cruise or something, we always recommend it. If a bag is gate checked, is there a charge? At this time, no, there's been no charges. What is an 80/75? How do our clients? So 80/75 is agent discount 75. It is only for a travel agent. It's not for a client. And how do you purchase a flight pass? I think that's a longer conversation, and I have a PowerPoint that I can send to Greg. So if you, I'm sorry, is it Westlyn? Maybe you can reach out to Greg and we can get you that how to purchase it, because you can do it online for the client, and the client can give you access to the flight pass, so you can book it on their behalf as well, and also get reports about it.
So 80/75 is something you cannot get through Centrav. So yeah. Jennifer, maybe you want to just share your email at the end of this broadcast, so if people have other questions or if they want to learn more about that, you can help them out directly.
Okay. Do I need a visa if a layover in Montreal leaving from Fort Lauderdale headed to Athens, Greece? So visa requirements are based on what type of passport you have. So that's hard to answer, but if it's a US passport, you do not need a visa for Canada. And in layover, meaning a connection, you do not need a visa to connect in Canada. But again, if somebody has a different passport, a foreign passport, that you should check. And unfortunately, I can't give you a broad answer because it's different for every country. Oh, so, well, don't be sorry, Jenny, to ask questions, but she said, sorry to ask so many questions, but can I tell people Air Canada has great business class fares and I've been selling a lot? Thank you very much. We do. We try to be very competitive. On the Atlantic, we have JV partners, United and Lufthansa, so we all have the same fares. You might find some Air Canada fares are less. That's just based on availability. But we do have some very competitive fares into Asia, the Caribbean, and Latin America. So, and seasonality plays a role. You know, when you're traveling to Europe in the summer, it's high season, so fares are higher than they would be if you went in the winter. So, but thank you for that. Business class is great on Air Canada. Marissa, thank you. It's a great webinar. Well, we appreciate that feedback, Greg and I. So thank you again. I'm happy to do any more. Accra, Ghana, not at this time. Into Africa, we fly into Morocco, Casablanca, and we've suspended flights temporarily to Cairo and Tel Aviv. So those, when they become available, they'll be put into the GDS system. Certainly your Centrav agents will be able to let you know if they see something available. I've heard network planning talk about Accra, but it is deciding where to go and when we can go has a lot to do with available aircrafts. So right now, like most airlines, we're all waiting for the ones that we have on order to be delivered. So we were expecting 8 new aircrafts this year, but they will not be coming till next year. So we're not able to grow the network as quickly as we'd like to. US hubs. Well, we don't have a US hub, but we fly to 51 cities in the US. So, oh gosh, out of the East Coast, we're flying out of Boston, out of New York, LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark, Washington, DC, Baltimore, Dulles, and Reagan. We're flying out of Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, out of Florida. We have quite a few. We've got Tampa and Fort Myers and Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Orlando. We have Atlanta and Nashville, and up in Ohio, we fly Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus. We fly out of Detroit. Out of Chicago, it's O'Hare. Minneapolis is a great. St. Louis, we're launching a St. Louis, Montreal in May. We fly St. Louis, Toronto, Houston, Austin, Dallas, New Orleans. I'm trying to go through the United States. Kansas City, we fly out of, and out west we were looking at Salt Lake City. That has been seasonal, so we'll see how that goes. But out of the West Coast, we have Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, San Diego, just to name a few. I'm sure I've missed quite a bit. Phoenix is big, so 51 cities. So you should be able to find us. We're either flying mostly to Vancouver, Toronto, or Montreal. There are a handful that into Calgary, but more so to the other 3 hubs. Okay, I'll put my email in at the end about the AD75. Oh, thanks, Sharon, about the nice business class. We appreciate that. The webinar is being recorded, and when it's done, Greg will send it out for anybody that might miss part of it. Again, Greg will send out the webinar recording for you. I think that's the last question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Any? No, you got them all. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And that is correct. I'll be working on getting this webinar out to you all probably later today, and we'll have the Q&A and everything in there as well, so you won't miss a thing. If you came in late, no problem. And then you'll be able to see all the slides that she presented as well. So that's great information. You can keep that and refer to it anytime. So thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate you doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I just put my email in the chat for you. It's jennifer.merwarth@aircanada.ca. So if you have other questions, I'd be happy to help you. And yes, I can send out, if you email me, I can send you out the AD75 process. So you have that.